Hello everyone. Today you will hear a brief recap of the movie All About My Wife. The story begins in the Japanese city of Nagoya. A Korean woman named Jung-in, frightened by an earthquake, crawls under a table and then runs outside in a panic. However, everyone around her remains calm, including another Korean, Doo-hyun. The young man promises to take her to the safest place where there are no tremors. It turns out that Doo-hyun is studying architecture, while Jung-in is training to become a chef. Suddenly, her phone starts vibrating, and she immediately dives back under the table, thinking another earthquake has started. Doo-hyun doesn't miss the opportunity and asks the nervous fellow Korean out on a date. 7 years pass. Jung-in is scolding a mailman for throwing a newspaper into their yard, even though she had clearly left a sign asking him not to do that. Unfortunately for him, the mailman talks back and nearly gets himself into trouble. An irritated Doo-hyun comes outside and calls his wife back into the house. Jung-in then starts criticizing her husband for interrupting her in front of other people. Although Doo-hyun refuses, she forces him to drink 2 glasses of juice. She won't leave him alone, even when he's sitting on the toilet. After forcing down the juice, Doo-hyun struggles with the consequences and immediately regrets it. Meanwhile, Jung-in continues nagging him and tossing clothes around the house. Out of nowhere, Doo-hyun says, "Let's get divorced." But he immediately claims it was just a joke. That is the final straw for Jung-in. She pulls out a pack of cigarettes and starts smoking right in the kitchen. Then she begins vacuuming, preventing her husband from enjoying his breakfast while blowing smoke in his face. When Doo-hyun leaves for work, Jung-in immediately calls him. She complains that she feels unattractive and is dealing with constipation. According to her, it's all because of him and his stupid jokes. She hangs up, then calls back moments later, argues with him some more, and hangs up again. Doo-hyun finally snaps. "That's it. Divorce," he yells, only to get distracted and crash into another car. When he learns that a specialist is needed for a project in another city, Doo-hyun immediately volunteers. However, he faces competition from a coworker who has his own sob story. His wife cheated on him, and he can no longer stand being at home. That unfortunate coworker ends up becoming Doo-hyun's drinking buddy for the evening. When Doo-hyun returns home, his wife is already waiting for him at the door. She has smoked several packs of cigarettes throughout the day and immediately resumes driving him crazy. The next day, Doo-hyun tries to convince his coworker to let him take the assignment instead. "No matter what I say, I'm always wrong, and my wife is always right. I'm losing my mind." The bespectacled coworker comes up with a plan. He suggests making Jung-in want to divorce herself by behaving strangely and provocatively. When Doo-hyun comes home from work, he refuses to change clothes. Jung-in is confused. "What's wrong with my husband? Is he sick? And now he won't even take a shower." But those tricks don't work on Jung-in. Before long, Doo-hyun is washed, dressed properly, and finishing his second plate of pasta. Eventually, Doo-hyun falls to his knees in front of his boss and desperately begs to be sent on the business trip alongside his coworker. After finally receiving permission, he returns home and, with bitterness in his voice, informs his wife that he is leaving for another city. Finally, freedom. For an entire month, Doo-hyun will be on his own in the snowy city of Gangnam. At the local radio station, 2 bored hosts work hard for an audience of only 4 listeners. A young woman named Sun is assigned to help Doo-hyun settle into the city. He admits that he ran away from his wife, but not because he wanted to find a mistress or anything like that. All he wants is peace and quiet. Feeling satisfied, he returns home, only to find his beloved wife standing in the kitchen. Jung-in has prepared a magnificent dinner, but Doo-hyun suddenly feels a lump in his throat. Jung-in doesn't like this little town, but she's willing to endure it for her husband. Doo-hyun complains that their house back home is left unattended, but she reminds him that family is more important. Before long, Jung-in starts getting on his nerves again. Doo-hyun tries to hide in the bathroom, but she follows him there as well. In his imagination, he finally snaps. He yells at her to stop talking nonsense, grabs food from the table, and stuffs it into her mouth. Of course, all of this happens only in his head. In reality, he is sitting on the toilet, listening to his wife's endless stream of words. To celebrate a new project, the company director throws a party. Employees are invited to bring their spouses. Doo-hyun wants at least one evening to himself, so he lies and tells his boss that his wife isn't feeling well. On his way home, he notices a crying woman leaving his neighbor's house. Moments later, another woman arrives and causes a scene. A Spanish woman has flown halfway across the world for him, yet the Korean man is ignoring her. Then a third woman emerges, claiming she ran away from home because of him. A fourth woman has even left her husband and children, only to be rejected and sent away. Jung-in doesn't want to attend the party, but decides to go for her husband's sake. Desperate to stop her, Doo-hyun comes up with a ridiculous plan. He breaks a plate, pours detergent on the floor, and Jung-in slips while running through the room. But a twisted ankle and an injured finger aren't enough to stop her. She still attends the party and looks stunning, even while using a crutch. The director's wife immediately starts pestering her with rude questions, asking why she still hasn't had children and making snide remarks along the way. The other wives join in, but Jung-in is quick-witted and effortlessly puts the woman in her place. Unfortunately, in the heat of the moment, she ends up dumping food all over the troublesome ladies. On the way home, Jung-in notices that their neighbor is preparing to jump off a rooftop. She immediately calls the police. Soon, everyone finds themselves at the police station. Outside, a crowd of women is waiting for the local heartthrob. Even a female police officer falls under his charm. Jung-in, however, harshly scolds the neighbor for his irresponsible behavior. The police officers get an earful as well. Later, one of the officers tells Doo-hyun that he has an extraordinary wife. No woman can resist this famous ladies' man, yet Jung-in remains completely unaffected. And all those women chasing him are married. Doo-hyun asks to meet the Casanova. When they finally sit down together, he begs the man to seduce his wife. He doesn't have the courage to file for divorce himself, and if the Casanova refuses to help, he swears he'll drown himself. To prove his point, he immediately runs straight into the water. The Casanova rushes in to save Doo-hyun, but ends up needing to be rescued himself. It turns out that the would-be savior can't swim and is terrified of water. Doo-hyun laments that he married a woman straight out of a TV drama, but that fateful day in Japan changed his life forever. The Casanova agrees to seduce such an unusual woman, but first they need a reason to meet. For that to happen, Jung-in must get a job, and Doo-hyun must help her get hired at the local radio station. A woman who loves talking more than anything immediately comes up with a million ideas for future broadcasts. Her salary will secretly be paid by her husband. However, the confident Jung-in instantly demands that her pay be tripled. Jung-in's first day at work begins, and she doesn't stop talking for a single second, discussing and criticizing everything under the sun. The Casanova tries showing off his physique, but Jung-in simply pushes him aside and tells her husband not to associate with that strange guy who walks around in winter wearing nothing but a sleeveless shirt. The Casanova takes it as a challenge. Now he's determined to win over this unusual woman. Just no physical contact, Doo-hyun clarifies. The specialist has already gathered some information about his target. For some reason, she hasn't been feeling well, she wears Chanel perfume, and she's been having digestive issues. He's only seen her 3 times, but he hasn't wasted any time. Still, that's not enough. The Casanova gives Doo-hyun an assignment: write down everything he knows about his wife. Her habits, favorite books, flowers, athletes, everything. One day, the Casanova pretends he's about to throw away an entire box of perfectly good dishes, which greatly upsets Jung-in. He immediately switches to playing the role of a sensitive, wounded man and even sheds a tear. He visits Jung-in and starts talking about how difficult life is for a Casanova. After finishing his tea, he suddenly leaves, abandoning the dishes behind. Jung-in quickly comes over to return them and discovers how interesting her neighbor's life really is. She also notices that he owns plenty of other beautiful tableware. The man mixes a cocktail and casually starts speaking French on the phone. As it turns out, he loves French perfumes and French literature, just like Jung-in. She confesses that she once had a nickname, 2 months. At first, men were attracted to her pretty face, but none of them could tolerate her company for longer than 2 months. The Casanova listens carefully and showers her with compliments. That night, while lying in bed with her husband, Jung-in mentions that their neighbor doesn't seem like such a bad person after all. Meanwhile, one of the radio hosts is eager to invite the new colleague out for a glass of wine. But the Casanova beats him to it, and Jung-in chooses to spend time with him instead. He takes her to a farm to treat her to freshly milked milk and show off some of his practical skills. Later, he decides to teach Jung-in how to milk a cow. Jung-in honestly tells her husband all about the outing. She also admits that she felt a bit uncomfortable when the self-proclaimed farm expert stood behind her and started making suggestive jokes while explaining the process. Jung-in continues to enjoy spending time with her new friend, while her husband receives daily reports from the Casanova. The radio show featuring the new host becomes increasingly popular throughout the city. One of her co-workers keeps trying to ask her out somewhere, completely ignoring the fact that Sun clearly has a crush on him. As for Jung-in, she feels comfortable in the Casanova's company. One day, they visit an abandoned park together. There, the ladies' man launches an attack, telling her that he's going crazy and can't live without her. Then he quickly plays it off, claiming those were just the lyrics of the song currently playing. Talk about an awkward moment. Meanwhile, Doo-hyun is secretly spying on them. The Casanova notices and chases after his client. He wants to pressure Doo-hyun into staying out of the way. Unfortunately, he's not much of a fighter. In the end, he simply asks the jealous husband not to interfere, not to monitor him, and not to question his integrity. As time passes, Jung-in's life no longer revolves entirely around her husband. She's passionate about her work, and her mood is better than ever. Still, she occasionally becomes nostalgic and remembers the early days of their relationship, when they shared countless romantic moments. One evening, the couple is just about to get intimate when Jung-in receives a call from work and rushes off, leaving her husband alone on the couch. Soon, Jung-in is offered her own nationwide radio show. However, accepting it means moving back to Seoul. Everything seems to be going well, but the couple once again starts arguing over something trivial. On that sour note, Jung-in leaves for Seoul. Doo-hyun tells the Casanova that everything has worked itself out and that he no longer needs his services. But the Casanova disagrees. He believes his mission isn't over yet and decides to continue his game. Now the spouses are living separately. Jung-in's team specializes in conducting provocative interviews with celebrities. One of their guests is a choreographer known for being unusually affectionate with her young, muscular students. Doo-hyun's co-workers constantly praise his wife. An article about her is even published in a magazine. Then, unexpectedly, Jung-in returns to Gangnam in her own car. Despite her busy schedule, she prepares a huge amount of delicious food for her husband, just as she always has. Jung-in has many plans for the future. She wants to make all of her dreams come true. Unfortunately, she admits that she can't be the perfect wife right now. She can't even stay the night because she has to rush back to the studio. Before leaving, she confesses that she recently dreamed about being with an unknown man, although she never saw his face. Back in Seoul, the Casanova lures Jung-in to a restaurant under the pretense of giving her recordings that might help her work. She plans to start writing articles for a magazine. During their conversation, she confides in him that she and her husband have been trying unsuccessfully to have children for a long time. Meanwhile, Doo-hyun tries to call his neighbor, only to discover that the number is no longer in service. This turns out to be the final meeting between Jung-in and the Casanova. For a moment, it seems as if she is about to kiss him. Instead, she cleverly turns the tables on him, just as he once tricked her at the playground. Jung-in tells the Casanova that she dreamed about sleeping with him. After that, she says goodbye to her neighbor, but he refuses to let her go so easily. The Casanova hugs Jung-in and confesses that he has fallen in love with her. At the same time, he says that he's willing to forget her and even delete her phone number. After this heartfelt confession, he leaves the stunned woman standing at her doorstep. Meanwhile, Doo-hyun almost runs the Casanova over with his car, stopping at the very last moment. He begs his neighbor to stop pursuing his wife. Now he's terrified of losing her. Jung-in has become cheerful, charming, and more attractive than ever, and he's fallen for her all over again. The problem is that the Casanova has genuinely fallen in love with Doo-hyun's wife as well. For the first time in his life, the famous ladies' man is truly in love, and he has no intention of giving Jung-in up to someone he considers an idiot. Doo-hyun rushes home, determined to spend time with his wife, but he receives an urgent call and is immediately summoned back to work. Later in Gangnam, he speaks with his divorced co-worker, only to discover that the man has remarried the very same woman he divorced. Meanwhile, Jung-in is surprised to learn that her next interview subject will be the Casanova himself. Their conversation becomes unusually personal, leaving her co-workers wondering what's going on. The Casanova tells the story of a remarkable woman who changed his life and then left for Seoul. At the same time, Sun calls Doo-hyun and tells him that they're interviewing the legendary Casanova. He rushes over immediately, but Jung-in is confused and doesn't want to speak with him. Is this all because of him? Doo-hyun blurts out, "Have you two already slept together?" Then he finally reveals the truth. It was he who hired the Casanova to seduce her. Everything that happened between Jung-in and the neighbor had been carefully arranged from the very beginning. Jung-in instantly realizes that her husband had grown tired of her and wanted a divorce. And now, suddenly, he's claiming that he loves her again. Did the Casanova touch her heart? Of course he did. He knew what she liked, listened carefully to everything she said, and was always there whenever she needed help. She never knew someone could treat her that way. Unfortunately, it had all started as a lie. Now she doesn't need anyone's love. She feels that she wasted 7 years of her life on this fool. Suddenly, a powerful earthquake strikes. That day is Jung-in's final broadcast in Gangnam. During the show, she tells the story of a pathetic man who wanted to divorce his wife and hired a seducer to win her over. Doo-hyun listens carefully to every word. In the end, she concludes that people who love each other must communicate. Almost anything can be fixed if people stop keeping their feelings to themselves. With tears in her eyes, Jung-in tells her listeners that she wants a divorce. Later, she sits alone by the sea, feeling heartbroken. Then, right before her eyes, the Casanova walks into the ocean, apparently intending to drown himself. Soon afterward, both of them end up soaking wet in the back of a police car. Jung-in isn't angry with him, but she says they need to forget each other and move on. A worried Doo-hyun meets his wife afterward. Jung-in informs him that she has rented out their house and packed up all her belongings. Doo-hyun begs her to talk with him, but she replies that he should have done that much earlier. The Casanova calls Doo-hyun a cowardly fool, but he also says that there is still hope. Just as a strong building must be rebuilt on a solid foundation after an earthquake, Doo-hyun must start over and build a stronger foundation for his relationship if he wants any chance of winning his wife back. While the couple was packing their belongings in Seoul, a newspaper suddenly landed near them. This time, it was the irritated Doo-hyun who snapped at the mailman, scolding him just like Jung-in used to. They spend their last night in the house in separate rooms. During the night, Jung-in lies down beside her husband and kisses him, but by morning he wakes up alone. Some time later, the couple arrives at the courthouse to file for divorce. However, during a break, they decide to grab a bite to eat at a small cafe nearby. There, Doo-hyun loses his temper with an inexperienced waitress. Jung-in immediately starts lecturing him and criticizing his behavior, just like in the old days. Doo-hyun realizes how much he missed her constant nagging. Now that he is facing life alone, he finally understands why she used to act that way. Suddenly, a phone begins to vibrate. Just like back in Japan, Jung-in panics and hides under the table, thinking it might be an earthquake. And just like that day in Japan, Doo-hyun asks her out on a date. The couple never returns to the courthouse. As for the Casanova, with all of his dramatic stories, he ends up taking Jung-in's place at the radio station.